My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon of my sins, and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. As a priest, you get to hear all sorts of stories and all the various challenges in people's lives. And of course, one of these is the efforts of people to find a boy or girlfriend. And as you might well know, you might indeed be trying this yourself. One way to do this is through dating apps. And again, as you might know, there are secular apps, or there are general Christian apps, or specifically Catholic ones. And you might have had the experience, I certainly know of people who have, of trying a general Christian one and then finding yourself rejected for being a Catholic. The girl or the boy says he or she doesn't want to follow up with you because they are some other form of Christian and you are a Catholic. And of course, on a general secular app, this rejection is even more likely. There might be all sorts of people who no sooner do they see the word Christian or Catholic in your profile, they then decide not even to enter into contact with you. And of course, this can happen with jobs too. You send in your CV, and somehow it's clear that you are a Christian, or specifically a Catholic, either because you state this explicitly, or it becomes obvious from some of the experience you've had or positions you've held, and the potential employer passes you over simply for this reason, even if they can't explicitly say that this is the motive. And all these rejections can hurt. Any form of rejection hurts. Whenever we are rejected in any way, it hurts. Well, Jesus, this gives us a tiny idea and a tiny share in all the rejections which you suffer. All the examples I've given are specific ways to share in the rejection which you experience when you walked on earth, and which you experience still today, because so many people reject God. Jesus, you tell us in today's Gospel, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Indeed, you were so rejected that they killed you. You were rejected to the point of being murdered. And we want to be ready to share at least a little of your suffering and your rejection, particularly in this holy season of Lent which we've begun. My friends, let's ask ourselves, how have we started? Have we made concrete resolutions? Have we fixed on some specific way to deny ourselves, something we are giving up? Is it clear? Can we name it? Name it. Don't dodge it. Not to name is to dodge. We get lost in the fuzziness. And have we thought of some specific step to pray more, or at least to pray better? Have we thought of some way we can reach out in love and mercy to someone in need, some work of mercy we can live out this Lent? Jesus, you began by saying, the Son of Man. What do you mean by those words? They tell us that you have shared our human condition, become one of us, to enter our weak human state. You've made yourself capable of suffering and even of death in order to save us. This is indeed a great mystery. Jesus doesn't stop being God and doesn't stop having divine power. We see you, Lord, doing extraordinary miracles, multiplying bread, casting out demons, calming storms and a whole sea. Things which all show your divine power. But we also see you tired and hungry and not necessarily knowing everything in your human nature. We see you having to walk and to work and to eat and to sleep. I think of a super rich prince from a really powerful family who goes to live in a miserable slum to share the lives of his poorer subjects and help them come out of their poverty. Well, Jesus, this gives us just a tiny idea of what you have done for love of us. Suffering and rejection are the consequences, the effects, the symptoms of that spiritual disease which is sin. And what you did, Jesus, makes me think of a vaccine. A vaccine is to take a tiny bit of the disease upon oneself in order to overcome it, to be safe from it. Well, Jesus, you didn't just take a tiny bit of the disease, you took it all upon yourself. St. Paul goes so far as to say these extraordinary words: "For our sake God made him, Jesus, to be sin, who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God." Yes, Jesus, you took our sin, our spiritual disease, so much upon yourself that in a sense you became our sin. And you took all our suffering and all our rejection upon yourself. As man, it was enormous suffering. But as God, again in a sense, it was like a tiny vaccine, because compared to your infinitude, everything human is just tiny. You took our sin upon you so that your antibodies could get to work on it and overcome it. And what are those divine antibodies? Well, antibodies, and here I'm speaking very much as a non-expert, are like those forces of health within us, which help us to reject infection and disease. Well, God, the antibodies in you are your love. Just as the antibodies of our body overcome the disease, the bug, the infection, so God's love overcomes the bug of sin. God's antibodies are his very love. This is divine health. God's health, we could say, is infinite love. And in Lent, we are invited to share in this love in an extra special way. Because let's not see Lent as a tough, unpleasant time in which we feel miserable for all that we've given up. Let's see it as a time of blessing and grace in which we can get closer to Jesus and share more in his love, also by sharing a bit in his suffering and rejection. Because as we all know, you only truly love someone when you are ready to share in their suffering and misery. Otherwise, it's a weak, merely fair weather love, which wants only the good times, but not the tough ones. And for us, our Lenten penance is like a vaccine. And just as someone who takes a flu jab or a jab against anything else, be it typhoid or cholera or whatever, can then feel a little bit rough for a day or two, you, Lord God, offer us the opportunity to take the spiritual jab, the spiritual vaccine of penance and self-denial, which, yes, is a little bit unpleasant. But by feeling a little bit of hunger through some form of fasting, a little bit of suffering, which ultimately is a consequence of sin, we are helped to overcome our sin. So as I said, penance is like a vaccine. We accept a bit of suffering which comes from sin, the suffering of our penance and self-denial, so as to rise above sin. And then Jesus, you go on to say, "If any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake, he will save it." But Lord, what does it mean to save our lives? And what does it mean to lose them? I think of a loss adjuster in insurance. This is someone who comes along when you make a claim to examine exactly what you have lost and what sort of compensation you should get. We need to consider more what we are losing in order to understand better what the compensation, the reward will be. And we're losing very little. With God, whatever we lose, whatever we give up for him, even if we lose our lives, the reward is infinite and eternal. Well, let's ask our guardian angel to be our spiritual loss adjuster and help us to see how little we are losing and how much we gain. The only difference between an earthly loss adjuster and God's loss adjustment is that the earthly one wants usually to give you as little as possible, whereas you, God, want to give us as much as possible. So Jesus, help us to deny ourselves more daily this Lent, carrying our cross, denying our laziness, denying our body and its whims, denying our time wasting and our selfish use of time in general. Help us to be more ready to lose our life, to lose our time, our pleasure, our comfort, so as to be saved. Sometimes we try to save for ourselves in a bad sense. We save up my time. We save up my pleasure, my wealth, my food, my drink, my money. This is bad saving and leads to loss in heaven. Even if we don't lose heaven altogether, we lose some heavenly reward. Our bliss will be less than it might have been had we been more ready to lose on earth. So let's be ready to lose our life by denying ourselves more this Lent, through whatever we give up, through the time we dedicate to God in prayer. In a sense, we lose it, but we gain something much better. Or through the time we dedicate to works of mercy. We might lose time before the television or at the computer screen or the phone screen, but we gain a bigger heart, the happiness of meeting and helping someone in need, and above all, we gain a generous reward from God. So Jesus, we want to share more in your suffering and rejection this Lent, just as Our Lady shared in it by standing bravely at your side at the foot of the cross. But this suffering can act in us like a vaccine. By going through this small discomfort, we achieve greater health and more life in you. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections and inspirations you've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.